Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I have a real pleasure every night at 6 o'clock on 960 a.m. to bring you interviews with some fascinating people, and tonight is no different. I want to introduce you to Ann Kaplan. Ann Kaplan has a doctorate in business, a master's in business. She runs her own business, and she was on the Real Housewives of Toronto, if you can believe it. And 2 years ago, she wrote a book called How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself. So it's a pleasure tonight to introduce you to Ann Kaplan. Ann, welcome to my show. How are you tonight?
Great, and thanks for having me on your show. Really excited.
What was it like being on a TV show with the Real Housewives of Toronto?
Well, I absolutely loved every minute of doing that show. It is something, when you're in finance, it is completely outside of finance. And it's when you're on a reality show, you have to buy into the fact that if you don't like who you are, you better not go on a reality show, because when you watch it, it's like, oh my goodness, that's me. And if you're okay with who you are, then reality is all for you. Just be yourself, own it, get on the show, and just say, hey, this is okay. I like who I am, and there I am. So
now they described you as the unhousewife housewife. Let me ask you if this is all accurate. This says that you've got an MBA, you've got a doctorate in business, you run your own business. You're CEO and president of iFinance Canada, which is the parent company to Medicard, Petcard, Dental Card, iFinance Tech, iFinance Home Improvement, a North American consumer finance company. You took the company from startup in 1996 to one of the largest consumer finance companies in Canada with loan applications in excess of $2 billion. With all of that, why would you want to?
Yeah.
With all of that, why would you want to be on a Real Housewives of Toronto reality TV show?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've always done, there's nothing that says if you can sing, you can't dance. And there's nothing that says that when you reach something that you have to stop there, because there is a thought that, all right, I have this job and I'm going to end here. And I've got this house and 2 cars, and I've got 2 kids, and that's where I will find my comfort zone. But that's never been for me. I want to break through and do whatever I'd like to do in this one lifetime that I have right now. I want to enjoy every moment of it. And doing a reality show is something I never expected to do. But when it landed and the offer came, why wouldn't I do it? It's like, why not?
What did it teach you?
It was fun. It's television. I've hosted 3 shows before that. I was hosting makeover shows, and doing a reality show taught me timing, the importance of the moment, the importance of, you can't go back in life and say, I want to retake that, I want to reshoot it. In reality, you can't. I suppose you could, but in reality, you can't say, I want to retake that. You say it, you said it, and that's it. And the same thing is in life. So be prepared for every moment and make every moment count, and be ready for those conversations where you want to get as much out of somebody as you can. Find where you can make conversation interesting, learn from people, and make those, don't have stagnant moments where they're not doing something, even if it's rest. But don't have stagnant moments, because that's what the show taught me, is those moments count. For instance, if you're setting up for 6 hours of shooting, make sure you get whatever you want in those 6 hours, so you're not wasting everybody's time. But why not treat life like that, so you're not wasting everyone's time?
We're chatting tonight with Ann Kaplan, who was on the Real Housewives of Toronto, described as the housewife on the Real Housewives of Toronto. And she's written a book, How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with a little bit more with Ann and talk about what's in the book. Stay with us.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight with Ann Kaplan. Ann is a MBA, a DBA, She runs iFinance Canada, which is a company that's in the consumer finance business. It's got $2 billion of loan applications. Sounds like really quite the successful operation. And then she wanted to be on a reality TV show. And she was on The Real Housewives of Toronto. She was described as the unhousewife housewife. And then she decided to, I guess, write a book about it. And the book is called How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself. And before I get into talking about the book, let me ask you, where'd you do the MBA and the DBA, and were those at the beginning of your career or via your career, in the middle of your career?
I did an MBA at the Rotman School of Business at University of Toronto, and then I did a Master's of Science in Finance, and I did a corporate governance designation at the Institute of Corporate Directors, and then I did a doctorate at the Henley School of Management with the Rotman School of Management and the Henley School of Business in England. Did a joint program, and I did my doctorate in business, where in finance, of all things.
And was this
quite a bit
at the beginning of your career, in the middle of your career?
In the middle of my career. In the middle of my career.
Okay, so I am doing a DBA right now, and I just can't finish it. With everything else going on in my life, it's so challenging to get the thesis done. How did you do that, and what was your thesis topic?
My thesis topic was I actually did an empirical analysis of consumer default, and I did neural network modeling and decision tree modeling. I have a math mind, but I'm not a mathematician, and I'm actually not. I don't think anymore. I've gotten kind of old, crockety in my math skills. So. And technology helps. You have SPSS, you have all the different types of programs that can help you run the regression models and all the programs that you want to run. So my topic was really creating a credit decisioning score that would be similar to a FICO credit score that would advise whether someone was going to default on a loan or not.
What is neural network modeling?
It's a type of modeling that you would do to take information, and you would create it's a model that's used to create a outcome of, in my case, of whether a consumer would default on a loan or not. So it's just how that model works. The same with decision tree modeling. It makes a decision, moves to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. It's just a modeling program that you would use. And I ultimately used regression modeling. And how do you find the time? You don't sleep. You have to devote your time. I would lock myself down at the University of Toronto in a room for the day. And that's how I got through it. So I would take my days, I'd go to work in the morning, and then I'd spend the rest of the day at the university. And that went on for years. It was really hard.
And then when did you launch your consumer finance business?
Consumer finance business was launched in 1996. And we're just going into point of sale lending as well. So 1996 is going on 25 years of lending in the consumer space. And we've grown that to across Canada. We're in all provinces, French and English, and we're loaning through 16,000 merchants throughout the country. They offer our financing programs to their customers. So that's 25 years of doing that.
And so you're like the back office consumer finance to other merchants?
When you are checking out to purchase something, or you're at a medical doctor's office or a dentist, we're the finance company that they're offering to you to borrow. You might be getting a cosmetic treatment, or you might be getting a dental treatment or a veterinary treatment. We're the finance company that is being offered to you for loans to pay for those treatments. So they're unsecured lending. Also at checkout, when you're going to purchase something, we're the company that you click on and you pick iFinance Pay, and we are that company that offers you an instant loan within 90 seconds.
Fantastic. And then you decided, on top of everything else going on, that you would write a book. And I understand that it's a deeply personal book and a very humorous book. And you really offer a behind the curtains view of not only your life, but what women need to do to put bad stuff or good stuff behind them and move on and find success. And it's called How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself. Explain to me the title.
It was called How to Be Successful in Spite of Him, because I look back on my life and it really, the difficulties that I'd gone through, including a breakup of a marriage, including a difficult childhood. And I wanted to write that if you have had difficulties in your life, if you became a single mom like I was a single mom when I started in business, and it was tough times, that you could really get through that. And in spite of maybe the man that you had broken up with, or the father that was not good to you, or something in your life. And as I wrote it, I thought, it's not how to be successful in spite of him. It's actually how to be successful in spite of yourself, because it's you that has to get out of your own way, not somebody else, because you can't control other people, but you can control your response to them. So I changed the title. That's why him is crossed out, and why how to be successful in spite of yourself. Don't blame it on someone else, and don't blame it on yourself either, but get out of your own way. And from this day forward, find your path to being successful. And that is what the book is about. Now, Brian, I didn't want to talk about my past or my sad life, because I've tried to get through things and put them behind me. But as I wrote it, I started to take everything out. And then the editor came back to me and said, Anne, you need to talk a bit about your own life. You need to be relatable. And I didn't want to put things in, but they put back in all the stuff I had taken out. And when I looked through the book, when it was finished, I hadn't read what I'd written 2 years prior, because it took a couple of years to write that book. And I sat there and cried. I thought, oh my goodness, this stuff happened. And it was hard to expose the difficulties that I'd gone through, because they're very real. But I think in telling people how tough life can be and that you can get through it and come out happy, it doesn't mean you have to come out wealthy or anything like that, but coming out happy, coming out the other end, and that you can, even if you were a single mom, even if you had a tragic childhood, even if you struggled to pay bills, you can come out on the other end and say, hey, I like my life. And that doesn't necessarily mean money. And I felt it was important to say, this is what I went through. And afterward, I felt it was important, but I was embarrassed. I felt that was my own story, and I didn't want anyone to know how much I'd struggled. And I don't try to portray as a struggling person, but I think it's important to say, hey, I got through this.
By crossing out him and replacing it with yourself, sounds like you've got to make the decision as to whether you want to play the victim or not. And I guess for a while you were thinking you were the victim, and then something changed and you decided that you weren't the victim. It was up to you. How did you go through that process?
There was a point in my life where I was a single mom, 2 kids, no money, and I was bathing my 2 little kids. They were in the bathtub, and I was kneeling on the floor, bathing the 2 toddlers, baby and the toddler. And I was crying, and I was crying all the time. And I remember they looked up at me, and they both started crying. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's almost like Mahatma Gandhi says, be what you want your children to be. And there I was, this sad, sad mother, because my husband and I had split up, and there I was, single mom, 2 kids. And I was looking at my life as if that was bad. And if I looked at it and said, hey, guess what? I've got 2 healthy children, and I've got my whole life ahead of me, and I've got that turkey behind me, then I've actually got a really good life. And so it was all perspective. I shifted my perspective. And from that moment on, I decided, and I remember it was like drawing a line in the sand. From that moment on, I decided that I was going to be the happy mom, that I was going to be the positive mom. And I was going to show my children by example that whatever happens, that we were going to get through it and we were going to have a happy life. And from then on, I was happy parent.
So in your book, How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself, is that one of the suggestions to be the happy parent, to have a positive attitude, to have a positive outlook on life?
Well, I don't think I say that in those exact words. It is more, the book goes through the processes of just really being where your soul is where you want it to be, where your relationships, that you don't have people in your life that are negative, that bring you down. And if you're in a relationship with somebody who isn't making you shine, or doesn't want you to shine, or wants to hold you back, is to move on from that person. So the book doesn't talk about just sort of be happy, because you can't tell yourself to be happy. You actually have to do things that make you happy, and then you will be happy, because happy is an outcome. You can't say, oh, be happy. You can say smile. Maybe someone could smile, but you can't say be happy. And the book talks about being the healthy you, and you're living and eating with purpose, where you're not recovering the next day because you overate or overdrank the night before, but it's having balance in your life, but also being a healthier you and being in the best shape you can be in. That doesn't mean a particular shape, but really not destroying yourself, because it's very difficult to destroy yourself slowly by eating incorrectly, by not being in shape, by not being positive, by being in bad relationships. And it's finding that balance in everything. And that's how you live your life. And it's a lot easier when opportunities come around that you have a balanced mind to recognize those opportunities. And so it's working on yourself in all aspects. And that's not hard to do if you do it a little bit at a time.
How did you work on yourself? Did you have a mentor or a coach or a therapist, or, were you into shamanism, or what was the process that got you to work on yourself?
Well, I think it is. I need a lot of work. You're always trying to better yourself. And a lot of it is self-awareness and aware who you are, and that you're okay with who you are. When I was younger, I went to a lot of gurus. And I had three fathers. One of my fathers, his wife.
Sorry, you had three fathers? That's not biologically possible.
I had three fathers. I had a biological father that my mother had an affair with in Hawaii. He was an entertainer in Hawaii. And the man that brought me up was a person I called Dad. And then my mother ended up leaving him, and then she remarried, and I had another father. I adored him. I adored all my fathers, loved them all. And I called him my stepdad. Yeah, I loved all my dads. And it was really hard on Father's Day, because that's like 3 gifts. But I got along with all my parents, because whatever fighting they had, it wasn't my problem. And I knew that. That's their problem. So they're going to fight. Don't fight over me. If you are, I'm leaving the room.
I have been surprised in the last little while of how many successful females that I've interviewed that are single. I can imagine, to a lot of guys would be intimidating, given your academic background, given your finance knowledge, given your success in business and in life. What was it between your current relationship and the old one that led to your current partner not being intimidated?
Well, my current partner is very, what's the word for it? He is very confident with who he is. And he actually likes who I am. He got me. Not many people would get me. And not many people get other people. You want to be with someone who gets you. And I look at that with my children, and they bring home girls or guys, and I look and say, did they get that person? Because each of my kids are unique. And when they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, I'm looking not what they do for a living, but I'm looking, do they get their personality? Do they get how special that person is? And my husband just got me. It wasn't about being my degrees or things like that. It was just, he liked the person I am. And, he's got his flaws. I have my flaws, but, we're both smart enough to know to work with it.
How do you know if someone gets you?
He got my humor. That's a good question. He got my humor. He got who I am he believed in me. You could tell that. You could tell. And he liked me more than I liked him. He chased me for 1.5 years before I had my first date. And I don't even know if I still like him, but I did notice during the pandemic that I wondered if we'd make it through the pandemic. And then I started to realize that I actually like being with him. So that was interesting, because you kind of, after 20 years, you're gliding along, and you go, I wonder how this pandemic, I hear people are getting divorced, and I'm thinking, I wonder if I'm in lockdown, if I'm going to really enjoy him. And I just absolutely love his company. And I was surprised. I enjoy him. I don't like being away from him.
In the Real Housewives of Toronto and in other interactions, you probably find a lot of people that don't have good relationships. What's the secret to a good relationship? Is it just getting the person? What else are the secrets to a good relationship?
Well, I have been through a few marriages, so I don't know that I know a good relationship because I wouldn't have had the divorces behind me. But the happiness I find is I live my own life, and I know the rule book. You've got the rule book. Couples have rule books. I know the rule books. I don't push the rule books, and I never ask my husband for anything. I just manipulate and get whatever I want out of him. So I know not to ask him for something that he doesn't want to give me, but I try to make it his idea. And so he always feels like he's the one that's coming up with everything. And I absolutely enjoy that. And I never get in his way. I let him be completely who he is. Even if I feel that he's making a mistake, I still support him because he's his own person. So I have to let him be that and stand behind him. And his dinner is on the table every night when he gets home.
I beg your pardon?
So I cook him dinner every night, our whole marriage, unless we go out for dinner when he comes home. So his dinner is there.
Okay, so I apologize. That sounds a little surprising. It doesn't sound consistent with the person who's got the MBA, the DBA, running a successful business, doing writing books and doing. You said you were doing things with shows on self-image and things like that, and you still make dinner every night.
I do. It's I was brought up with a very traditional mother, and I want my children to know that their mom cooks and has cooked for them, and dinner time is a family time. Not so much during COVID. So we sit apart, and we've got trays that we sit away from each other. So we're not sitting at the table. But I have cooked for him every single night, except for when we go out and my family. And I have never ordered in a pizza, or except for when the kids were younger and they would have parties where you had to make sure that there were no peanut allergies, and the only place you could order were pizzas. So that's the only time. But other than that, no McDonald's, no drive-throughs. I cook.
Do you dress
for dinner?
And that
to me is really, yes. I don't dress down. I don't wear pajamas. And yes, and I set the table and the fork and the knife and the napkin every time.
Do you eat in the kitchen or the dining room?
When we're not in COVID, we don't eat in the kitchen, but when we're not in COVID, we always sit as a family at the dining room table. Either we have more than one dining room, but one of the tables.
Excellent. Well, I think there's
not in front of the TV.
There's some wonderful rules there about whether whoever makes the dinner, but sitting down as a family for dinner, dressing for the occasion, doing it in a formal manner or slightly formal manner, like at the dining room table, rather than the kitchen or at a buffet island or in front of the TVs, which too many people I think do, and you end up not having that time to connect over the dinner meal, which I think is so critically important. I loved that my mom did the same thing, made dinner every night and got dressed nicely for the meal, and it wasn't Stepford Wives. It was one of her ways of making sure that we all connected. And
do you do that now? Is that how you do that now?
When I'm lucky enough to have someone to make dinner for, I'm pleased to do so. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that we have to have a particular rule book, but in our home, that's the way it is. And it's not wrong if you're not doing that. In fact, the shift is going away from that. Is Uber Eats. Somebody will call up Uber Eats, and probably the need to have a large fridge will not be in the future. It'll be those narrow little fridges, and the stoves will be just for heating things up. And I don't know that we'll have people that are so into cooking in the future.
If you could talk to your, 25-year-old self, for my daughter just turned 24 yesterday, nice. And had dinner with her. If you could talk to that 24-year-old young lady who's got her undergraduate business degree and has got a good career, started downtown Toronto, thinking about relationships, thinking about jobs, thinking about masters or multiple masters and doctorates, what would you tell your younger self?
I would say, put the relationship second if you meet somebody, and My father said to me when I was younger, he said, be careful, your maternal clock is ticking. My father was one of my fathers was a radiologist. And he said, you're going to want to have children. Don't let that guide you. He said, focus on your career. So I would say to my younger self, focus on your career and later on have the children so that you set yourself for life. And it's hard to backpedal. I would say that to myself. And I would say, you're okay with who you are, because I think I'm in the same boat as many women that we never think we're very attractive when we're younger, and we're trying to find our own attractiveness and our own physical self. And I'd say, you're okay the way you are. And I always felt like I was awkward looking, and that's not a very good place to be. And if somebody is going to be negative about me, I would say, just be comfortable with who you are. And I think I brought my kids up the same way, is just to be comfortable with who they are in their own skin. And how they look is never been an issue. It's not been talking about appearances. And there is so much focus on appearances too, especially when you do a show like The Housewives.
I can well imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on that. But I don't like being so caught up, because I will never be good enough. And the internet right now is not very friendly.
One of the other things that you've been involved in is philanthropy and charitable work. And you during COVID back in April, you had a Mass for Everyone production facility in your own home, I understand. And in addition, you raise money for a school in Barrie, providing winter clothing and holiday gifts and other supplies to several families in need. Why are you involved in community charitable activities like that?
So I get involved in other charities, like raising money for people living with HIV and children living with life-threatening illnesses. So I am involved in some other charity work. But there are times when through happenings such as my friend Joyce Rankin, she works with Street Health. And she called me up at the beginning of COVID and she was crying. She said, we have no PPE and we're helping people in the street, and we have now everybody knows what PPE is. So they had no masks, they didn't have anything. And I said, let me see what I can do, because I own a surgical facility as well. So we have 4 operating rooms. And when I bought a building, I bought a surgical facility with it. And she wanted PPE from me. And I said, well, I can't supply the city of Toronto, the people on the street. We don't have that much. Let me look into it. So I started to look into how I could get her masks. She was devastated. She's trying to help street people. And I realized we couldn't get them. We couldn't get them from China. We couldn't get them from anywhere. And so where I used to have gowns made, because pre-COVID, when we go to galas, I'd always reach out to different designers. And I reached out to the designers and said, can you help me? I'm going to make masks. I need to help supply. And so I learned what kind of filters to put in them. And we started to make masks. We ended up making 60,000 masks. I started to employ and pay $1 a mask to seamstresses, and we had 27 seamstresses and working for me, making 100 to 200 masks a day. And we ended up 60,000 masks. We donated it to the Peel region, Sunnybrook Hospital, Sick Kids Hospital. I went through the Ontario Medical Association and got lists of people that were in need of masks, and we just started to donate masks out to Toronto, Peel, anywhere that there was a frontline worker that was in need of a mask. We supplied a mask until they started to get the supplies in. And I had people helping me with masks at the Keene footwear that makes footwear. We're making masks now, and they gave me masks so I could deploy them out as well. And it became like a beautiful community effort. It wasn't just me, it was a team effort. And I felt very good that I was doing something right during COVID, and it just evolved into that. And out of some of the things that I've done, I've met some interesting people. And I was talking to a woman 2 weeks ago, and she said, well, at the school that she teaches at, she said, you wouldn't believe it. It's so cold, and there's kids without coats and without shoes. And I said, hold on, tell me there's not kids without shoes and coats, because that's when it was snowing here. This is just 2 weeks ago. So I went back to work, and our staff at iFinance raised money. We matched it, and we got families gift cards for groceries and kids for shopping at Walmart. And we got gifts and boxes, and I hired a moving truck, and we sent out boxes and boxes and boxes of coats and clothing and boots, and found out the ages and the gender of the kids, and just sent them whatever we could find, and toys and gifts and toothbrushes and shampoos, and we wrapped them all up and did little stockings and things for the families, and sent them out there. And that was community. It was community coming together. And we've done that through 50 families in Jane and Finch, where we send food out to them, and like bags of rice and bread and spaghetti and sauces and things, that they at least have something. And what's sad, Brian, is there is a really big need for that right now.
There sure
This is Toronto. Incredible. This is Toronto. And it is worse than we're realizing of how much families can't make ends meet right now. So if you can afford to go on Amazon and buy something, and you can afford to go to a local retailer and help a family in need and identify, you can find those families. You can find the food banks and places. There's a really big need right now, bigger than we're realizing. And that I cannot listen to someone tell me that there are kids without shoes and without boots without saying, I'm going to do something about that. And that was the same with the masks. And 3 weeks ago, we had call from Peel Region and from other institutes and places that are in the need of masks. So that told me that we're opening up again a few weeks ago, because where we had closed shop for making masks, we went right back into producing masks again. And these are washable, reusable masks, not just the paper ones.
I'm really worried about the economic impact of COVID-19 and the closures and the layoffs and things like that. You're in the consumer finance business. Are you worried about, I've been worried about small business bankruptcies. Are you worried about consumer bankruptcies?
Well, we certainly keep an eye on that. And that is something that I have daily discussions with my banks and with, and in credit decisioning. And even though that's where my doctorate is, you don't ever, in all of the modeling that you do, you have to base it on actual experience. And in nowhere, in my experience, other than the economic downturn of 2008, 9, that period of time, there has been nothing where we have data that what happens during a pandemic when the global economy goes into a nosedive. And so, yes, there's concerns about that. And I am personally more concerned about the impact on families and the recovery of, we'll manage through business, but the recovery of families, and how some of them, where there's retail outlets and stores and businesses that have shut down, how they will recover.
We have New Year's coming up. People start to make plans for the following year or the coming year. Do you have any things that you typically do that really help you get ready for the next year? Do you write a to-do list, resolutions, vision board, or anything like that?
Oh, is there a New Year's resolution? No, I don't have a New Year's resolution. I mean, I used to look at my husband, and we always spend New Year's in Hawaii, and that's where my roots are, and my roots used to be at the hair salon. We're not even allowed to go there right now. So that's where my roots are. So, we would enjoy ringing in the new year, and we're both very positive people. And I think that we're going to just ring it in again and try to continue to live our lives with a smile. And the good thing about my husband and our family is that we're all on the same page to continue to try to help and give back too. So, and the kids don't want Christmas presents. They want to help, which my daughter has instigated that.
It's a real pleasure chatting with you tonight. And Kaplan, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to get your book, which is called How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself, how do they get that? Is that available online?
Yeah, that's available through Amazon, and it's available at Indigo. And that's the easiest places to get it, through Amazon or Indigo.
Thank you so much. Do you have a message for our listeners tonight as we think about the holiday season in the new year?
I would say that there is a lot more out there, that difficulties out there. And the greatest gift you can give is to help out the people that are really in need right now, and give back. And that would be my message. And the other message is just to enjoy the holidays, enjoy your family. And we're all embracing our families, embrace life.
And Kaplan, the unhousewife on the Housewives of Toronto, the author of the book, How to Be Successful in Spite of Him. I mean, yourself, him crossed out, yourself replaced, and a MBA, DBA running her consumer finance business. Thank you so much for sharing with us some thoughts about getting over challenges in life, and figuring out who you are and what you are. And I loved the suggestion about finding a mate that gets you, and that's critically important. And thank you for your inspiration. It was a wonderful conversation. That's our show for tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM, or you can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca, or you can get my webcasts and videocasts the next day on my website, briancrombie.com. Thanks for joining us. And thank you so much for inspiring us with everything that you've succeeded in life, and good luck in 2021.
Thank you.